Hey guys, TGKS Productions. In this video, I'm going to be discussing how to play and win the new open wheel races that were added to GTA Online this past week. So these races are part of the drip feed of the Diamond Casino heist, and I'd probably say these are the most realistic races we've gotten in GTA Online. A lot of the races we've gotten in the most recent past updates were sort of stunt related. I would say these are most similar to the races we've received really towards the beginning of Online or the release of Online, as well as maybe being somewhat similar to the Hot Ring Circuit races that were added with the San Andreas Supersports update back in, I believe, of March 2018. A little bit similar to that since you're racing around a circuit and those races as well. However, those are also more stunt related. So I would say these are definitely the more realistic races and potentially and arguably the most realistic races we've ever received in Online. And we'll talk about why here in a minute. Now, in order to participate in these races, there are three ways to sort of join them. You can either go through your Play Quick Job app in your in-game phone and join through there. You'll see an open wheel race tab there, and you can join. You also have the option to go in the online tab and sort of the jobs tab Rockstar created down to the regular races. And if you scroll up, I like to scroll from the bottom because they're open wheel races and these go in alphabetical order. So O's more towards the bottom. You'll see there I have there's 7 new maps total. You'll see all the open wheel races you were able to host and potentially join with other players through there. And the last way is sort of this icon or blip down towards LSIA, which you can either directly enter or go on call. And these are pretty much the 3 ways in order to join or participate in these open wheel races. Now, I stated how I believe these are the most realistic races that we received in GTA Online, and it's really because these races have 2 main differences as far as setting them apart from all the other races we have in GTA Online. As you'll see here, this is the first race I actually did, first open wheel race that I participated in, and you'll see sort of the right or bottom right of the screen, there's 2 meters there that reads vehicle health and vehicle, or I should say tire grip. And those are the 2 main differences that affect sort of the condition and the performance of the vehicle and your ability to be able to win these races. And no other races in GTA Online have these 2, have vehicle health and tire grip. So let's look first at vehicle damage, or rather the vehicle health. So as you probably would have guessed it or thought of it as, the more you wreck in a race, whether it's with other players or props within the race, as you saw me just do there, sort of purposely wrecking this race to give you a better example. Essentially, your vehicle health is going to obviously deplete the more you get into wrecks, and eventually, as you're going to end up seeing here, if you keep getting to wrecks and you don't go to the pit stop in order to fix your vehicle and you deplete the health the full way, you're going to blow up here, commit suicide, and you will respawn with full health and full vehicle health and tire grip. But at this point, you pretty much have probably lost the race. If you try to sort of go off the course of the map, this is really the best example here because my vehicle health is full, but you will not refill your vehicle health that way. The only thing that will refill is your tire grip just because it completely depletes. So they will give you that back, but your vehicle health will not replenish if you drive off the course and have to respawn, or if you manually respawn by holding at least triangle on PS4. You also will not refill your vehicle health or tire grip. So the only way really to refill your vehicle health is if you either completely destroy your vehicle, deplete it fully until the point where it blows up, or if you hit the pit stop. So you want to definitely keep an eye on that health meter throughout the race because if you're getting into a lot of wrecks and you're not keeping an eye on it, obviously it's going to eventually affect the performance of the vehicle, potentially even having it blow up if you let it get to the point where it's that bad, and obviously will likely result in you losing the race overall. Now, to further expand on the importance of the vehicle health in these races, there's actually 3 parts of these new open wheel vehicles that actually can fall off or be removed from the vehicle, such as the front bumper, the spoiler, and the engine cover, which can affect the performance of the vehicle and ultimately the ability of you winning these races. As you just saw there, I lost my engine cover. Now, I will say out of the 3 parts you can lose, the engine cover, the spoiler, and the front bumper, the engine cover is really the part of the vehicle you have to worry the least about, because from my experience, the engine cover really does not affect the performance of the vehicle all that much. I believe even in the race you're seeing, I ended up getting 2nd place by the end of it. Of course, I went to the pit stop at some point during this race because I had to, at least for the tire grip. But out of the 3 parts that can be removed from the vehicle, or from these new vehicles, the engine cover is the one you have to worry the least of. However, losing the front bumper and the spoiler is a completely different story. Now in this race right here, I've lost my front bumper. Now it's a little bit hard to sort of really explain this because you sort of have to experience losing the front bumper for yourself in one of these races, but essentially it affects the turning and your ability to sort of ease into these turns. You're going to have to compensate a lot more for the turns, whether that's, you know, hitting on the brakes more or just letting up on the gas. So it's definitely going to affect your ability to turn and obviously ultimately your performance in these races. And then as you're seeing here, actually the race you're seeing here, these players were playing a little bit dirty, but I ended up getting my spoiler knocked off. You'll see immediately I started struggling to sort of gain control and control myself through these races. This can also be bad because it'll your tires are going to be grinding, which is going to ultimately affect your tire grip as well. So that's also going to be negative towards your performance. And then right here, this is another instance where I lost my spoiler. I got caught in this big crash at the beginning of this race, and you'll see my spoiler and my engine cover got knocked off. The only thing that really stayed was my front bumper, but you'll see here struggling to get around that turn. You'll even see you know, just a little bit later here, or even coming up right here, you'll see that just overall controlling the vehicle without the spoiler is a lot harder. So again, losing, you know, the engine cover isn't really that big of a deal, but losing either the spoiler or the bumper, like I said, the bumper really affects the turning, you know, the ability to turn, you know, I guess with ease, and then the spoiler being affecting really the turning and overall the handling of the vehicle. So you want to be careful of that. The reason why I'm stating all this is because, you know, just you sort of depleting your health doesn't necessarily mean that you know you're going to be in a bad spot with the race. I mean, you could have very little vehicle health depleted, but you may have lost your spoiler, which is going to be, you know, going to negatively affect you greatly. And if you don't get the pit stop as soon as you can, you're pretty much going to obviously lose that race. I believe all the races I've showed you right there, I've performed fairly poorly in. So again, I'm just sort of trying to reinstate the importance of the vehicle health and obviously losing those parts, which also does affect vehicle health. But it does definitely take these races to a whole new level, because before, you know, you could obviously have a major wreck in a race and still have the potential of maybe catching up or winning, I guess, if catch-up was on. But in these races, obviously, if you lose a part such as a bumper or a spoiler, you're going to likely get behind, since these races are set usually on a higher number of laps, and probably you'll end up losing overall. So it does definitely, I would say, just giving all this, it really does state the importance of vehicle health in these open wheel races. Now the second thing that affects the condition and performance of your vehicle and ultimately the ability of winning these open wheel races is tire grip. Now unlike vehicle health, tire grip depletes automatically over the course of the race, whereas with vehicle health only depletes or decreases if you get into wrecks with props in the race or with other players. However, if you do get into wrecks within these races, your tire grip will, especially or mostly if you're grinding your tires, as you're seeing here, obviously you're burning rubber, your tire grip will deplete at a faster rate than it normally does. And also if you're doing drifts in the race, which I definitely don't advise really doing in any races, just because one, it slows you down, and obviously in these races you're going to be burning rubber and depleting your tire grip, so you definitely don't want to be doing drifts in these type of races, or even really in any races. But that also, doing drifts and getting in crashes where you're grinding your tires will also deplete your tire grip at a quicker or a faster rate. Now in the case that you do let your tire grip deplete fully, your meter is completely down, usually when it starts getting down to that really low red region that you're seeing there, you're going to start losing control of the handling of your vehicle. Turns are going to become very difficult. The overall driving is going to be very difficult. It's going to be similar to losing your spoilers I talked about earlier, but even probably, I would say even worse than that. It's going to be a lot harder to control, so you definitely don't want to let this get completely depleted. But this is essentially what you would experience, sort of me just spinning out as I am right here. That's pretty much what you'd be experiencing if you do let your tire grip completely deplete. Now, there are 3 types of tires you can pick for these races. As you see under the vehicle option for the race, you have tires options. So that's essentially where you can set what tire you want for the race before going into it. So if you were confused about that, or sort of if you heard about the different tires you can pick, that's how you set the tire for the race. And if we look at the Rockstar Newswire here, they briefly sort of discuss the purpose or sort of the ability of each tire. We see right here it says, if we go to the second sentence, it says, hard tires, which is the first type of tire we can use, are great in dry conditions but decrease your grip. So essentially, again, they're going to be great in dry conditions. However, they're going to have the least grip out of the 3 tires, and they're also going to deplete, but they are going to deplete at the slowest rate. And then you have, as it says, they're going to take longer to wear out. Then you have medium tires, which is the second out of the 3 tires you can have, which are good in both wet and dry conditions, and have an average amount of grip. So they're better in more conditions, as well as they're going to have a little bit more grip than the hard tires. However, they're going to deplete a little bit quicker. And then you have the soft tires, which offer the best sort of use in wet conditions. They're going to have the best grip. However, they are going to deplete the quickest out of all 3 of the tires. So it is sort of important what tire you pick going into these races. I'm going to discuss sort of from my experience what tires I would pick in certain situations in these open wheel races. Now personally for me, I use the hard tires the majority of the time. Basically, I'm just sort of testing the hard tires out here and my sort of just doing a solo race. I wanted to get an idea of sort of when they started to deplete. On average, and I'll show you with this race, on average, from races I've done with other players, on average it's around laps 7 or 8, just because probably I'm getting in some wrecks, I'm grinding my tires here and there, so I'm probably depleting them at a little bit of a quicker rate. In this race, I managed to make it to lap 9 before I completely depleted my bar and lost control of my vehicle. So I like to use the hard tires because as a standard, when you get into these races, the suggested number of laps is 10 laps. You can also set on 5 laps, 20 laps, and 25 laps, but the suggested lap number is 10 laps. And with the hard tires, although the grip may not be the greatest, which to be honest, I've tested all the grips, they are all very similar, but according to Rockstar, it has the hard tires have the least grip out of all of them. You won't have to make as many pit stops, and on longer races such as 10 laps, 20 laps, and 25 laps, that can also be more beneficial because you're not going to have to be making as many stops. So the majority of the time, I like using the hard tires for these races. Now regarding the use of the medium tires, as you see here, once again I'm going to a solo open wheel race testing the grip of the medium tires out. What I ended up seeing here from my tests, around lap 8 I started to reach the complete depletion of the medium tires. Obviously if I was racing with other players here, I would have definitely should have made a decision to go to the pit stop there, because I would not make it through this entire lap with the medium tires. At this point I would start losing control, as I ended up doing. So given this, I really only use the medium tires if someone sets the lap number on 5. 5 is the least amount of laps you can set these open wheel races on, and with medium tires you should be able to make it on average with 5 laps in the race, because you might not quite make it to lap 8 if you're racing with other players, because you might be getting into some wrecks, you're going to be grinding your tires more. So usually around lap 5 or 6, maybe 7, you're going to have to go to the pit stop, whereas if it's only set on 5 laps, you will likely be able to make the entire race without having to go to the pit stop with medium tires, and medium tires do have a slightly better grip than the hard tires. So that is really the only time that I will choose medium tires. Lastly, regarding the use of the soft tires, the only really time that I choose the soft tires is if the host of the race puts the weather on raining. Again, Rockstar did state that these are the soft tires are the best used in wet conditions. So really, these are the only time I pick these tires, just because they do deplete fairly quickly. Again, the quickest out of all of them. So I really don't like using these tires unless really given a reason. So the only reason I really use these tires is if it's on, like I said, if the host puts the race on raining. To be honest, I've tested even the hard tires and the medium tires with when it was raining. Really, the handling was very similar. Really, the grip seemed fairly similar overall with all 3 tires. However, the hard tires and medium tires did deplete at a much faster rate than they did when it was not raining. If you look here, this is actually me using the medium tires in the rain. You can see by lap 5 I was already much lower than I was by lap 5 in my other race. And if you also look at the hard tires here, I'm almost at the same rate as the medium tires. I'm assuming these were also depleting even more quickly maybe than the medium tires at the same rate, just because again the hard tires aren't meant for wet conditions, where the medium tires can be used for wet conditions. But it just goes to show that using either of those tires also will deplete at a much faster rate. So definitely would advise using soft tires or medium tires, I guess you can also use when, like I said, if the host for whatever reason decides to put the weather on raining. Some other tips I have for you regarding sort of increasing your chance of winning these races: make sure you do not forget about the KERS boost that you have. Essentially, the KERS boost for these vehicles recharge either by hitting the brakes or easing up on the gas. For me, I like to use it obviously on long straightaways. I try to use it as much as I can in these races just to sort of ensure that I'm not just sort of sitting on a full KERS boost. So ensure that you are using that throughout the race. Don't just forget about it. And another tip I have for you is regarding the turns you are making with these races, obviously being cautious about them considering how important your vehicle health is in these races. I categorize the turns into 3 categories. The first of which you're going to see here is a 90-degree turn. Now, for the most part, depending on how wide the 90-degree turn is going to depend on whether you need to hit the brakes or not, or just maybe ease off of the gas. So it all depends on how wide the 90-degree turn is. Next turn you're going to see here is a 180-degree turn. I definitely had to hit the brakes there and ease up on the gas. So pretty much every 180-degree turn you're going to make, you're going to have to ease up on the, or you're going to have to hit the brakes and probably ease up on the gas as well. So definitely keep that in mind regarding those 2 types. And the third turn you're seeing here I classify is a sort of a curvy or twisty turn in a sense. Most of these turns I sort of just ease up on the gas with. Occasionally you might have to hit the brakes, but for the most part, sort of regarding the categories I just went over, for a 90-degree turn, it sort of all depends on how wide you sort of your amount of lanes you have with that turn, whether you have to hit the brakes or ease up on the gas. 180-degree turn, 100% going to have to hit the brakes, and then with the curvy or sort of twisty turns that I showed you there lastly, for the most part you should be able to just ease up on the gas. Again, the best thing to really do when you get into each of these races is for the first 1 or 2 laps sort of just feel out the race, get an idea of sort of how to make each and every turn with those first 2 laps, that we can be more confident throughout the course of the race. So obviously knowing sort of the map or the race itself is going to give you a little bit of an edge. That's really the best advice I can give you. Obviously not every single turn is the same, but I think most of the turns can be sort of thrown into one of those 3 categories and sort of have those general rule of thumb. So I definitely think that can be helpful overall. The last tip I'm going to give you regarding these races in this video is to stay away from the carnage. You saw the result of that earlier in the video with me losing my engine cover. So in the case where you're starting in the front of the race, in front of all the players you're competing with, you want to definitely hit that boost on go and try to stay ahead of everybody, to try to stay ahead of that carnage, since a lot of times when you're playing with a bunch of people, a big wreck happens at the beginning of the race. In this case, as you're seeing here, if you're starting further back, I was a little bit lucky here because I had a lot of room to be able to sort of just hit the boost on go and sort of just curve or turn around everybody. Sometimes there will be like a guardrail there to where you won't be able to do that. In that case, you might want to sort of stay back a little bit further, maybe not even hit the boost on go, and sort of just let the carnage happen in front of you, and then obviously just try to get around it. The last thing you want to do is getting caught in the carnage, especially with these races, because even getting caught in the carnage in the other races can be bad, because obviously it can put you behind. It can cause you to be set behind with the laps or with the race and cause you to lose. But in the case of these races, not only can it put you behind, but also if your vehicle gets damaged and you lose something like the spoiler and the bumper, we discussed how detrimental that could be in sort of affecting you being able to win these races. So obviously getting caught in the carnage is even more important, or rather not getting caught in the carnage is even more important with these races. So the last thing I'll touch on in this video is the comparison of the 2 vehicles that you can use in these open wheel races, the Progen PR4 and the Ocelot R88. I'm not going to go into a ton of depth with the comparison here, because I did go into a lot of depth in my video that I made the other day when I was customizing these vehicles, also doing the comparison. Essentially, these vehicles came down to really 3 differences between them. With obviously the appearance is a difference, but not really one of the 3 differences I'm going to mention. The main 3 differences is, one being that the Progen PR4 has a little bit of a better traction, or maxed out traction, when compared to the Ocelot R88. The price is also is the second difference. There's a $400,000 difference between these two vehicles, the Progen PR4 being the more expensive one. And the third difference being that the Progen PR4 has slightly more customization options, such as I believe 2 more liveries, and sort of a windshield or wind reflector option and the ability to tint that. So those are really the only main differences between these vehicles. From my experience, I even used the example from my video the other day. I have won with both of the vehicles. I even did speed tests in my video the other day, and both speeds for these vehicles were very similar in my tests. And I also showed, mostly I use the Progen PR4, I just prefer that vehicle more, but I also showed that I raced against somebody who actually beat me by about 1.3 seconds, and he was one of 3 people in the race out of like 12 people total that was using the Ocelot R88, and he beat me when I was using the Progen PR4. Like I said, I've used both vehicles, have won with both. So ultimately it comes down mostly to preference. You have to understand that these are the only 2 vehicles you can use in these races, so that Rockstar can't really make one overly superior than the other one. Otherwise there'd be no reason to even consider buying the other one. So they have to make them somewhat balanced. So to be honest, from my experience and in my opinion, it really all comes down to preference on which one of these vehicles you want in these races. Both will perform exceptionally well. In any case, guys, that's pretty much all I have for you for this video. I definitely recommend that you participate in these races if you haven't already. They are double money RP for the next couple of days. A lot of times, even Rockstar, when they add new content or new modes in online, such as like adversary modes, as we've seen in the past, they extend the double money in RP, so they may even extend double money RP on these races for the next week. So that may be a potential possibility. However, I would still recommend playing them even if it wasn't necessarily double money RP, because I believe these are very fun races, and also definitely probably some of the most realistic races, and really different from any other races we have in GT Online. I'd say the only downside of these races is the fact that these are set on a higher number of laps. A lot of times when you get players in that get behind on the first couple of laps and they sort of know they're never going to catch up, a lot of times they will leave. So that is, I would say, really the only downside of these races. Other than that, these races are extremely fun to play. Like I said, different from really any other race types we have in GT Online. And like I said, I definitely recommend that you participate in them if you haven't participated in them already. But in any case, guys, I hope you enjoyed this very long video. I hope you found it very beneficial. And as always, have a great day.